doesn't chase confidence. She doesn't chase charm. And she doesn't chase looks. She chases something deeper, something she can't even explain, something that speaks a forgotten language in her nervous system. You can't fake it. You can't buy it. And if you try to manipulate it, she'll vanish before you even notice she's slipping away. Carl Jung called this the anima dance, a psychic interaction between the masculine and the feminine, but one that doesn't happen through words. It happens through emotional frequency. And most people, most men, never learn how to tap into it. Because what she's drawn to isn't surface-level behavior. It's emotional reality. And this is where it gets dangerous. Because if you don't understand it, you'll think she's losing interest. You'll overcompensate. You'll chase harder. And you'll push her into silence. But what if she isn't leaving because she doesn't feel love? What if she's pulling back because she doesn't feel safe enough to chase you? Because here's the secret. The feminine only chases when the masculine evokes this one specific emotion. Not approval, not attraction, not validation, but something ancient, something most modern relationships have forgotten. And once you awaken it, she stops thinking, she starts feeling, and she runs to you, not because she has to, but because her soul won't let her do anything else. So what is this one emotion? And why is it so rare? Let's go deeper. The one emotion. She can't resist. It isn't admiration. It isn't lust. And it isn't even love in the way we usually define it. It's this: emotional safety, while still being mystified. Read that again. The feminine is magnetized not by chaos or comfort, but by a paradox. She wants to feel safe inside your mystery, not controlled, not caged, not analyzed, but deeply held, while still wondering what dimension you live in. She wants the thrill of your unpredictability, but without the anxiety of abandonment. She wants your edge, but only if it's wrapped in emotional consistency. This balance is rare, which is why so many women detach in silence. They stop talking. They stop sharing. They stop reaching. Not because they don't care, but because the emotional polarity is broken. She doesn't feel that paradox anymore, that intoxicating pull between curiosity and calm, between danger and devotion. Because that's what triggers her chase. The moment she feels like she's safe enough to be vulnerable, but still curious enough to explore who you are. Not what you offer, not what you say, but what you are in silence. That's what makes her heart move. Not just skip a beat, but surrender into motion. What happens when she doesn't feel it? If you lack this energy, if you become too predictable, too needy, too rigid, you might still keep her physically, but you'll lose her emotionally. She'll stay, but she won't chase. She'll nod, but she won't lean in. She'll talk, but something will feel missing. And no matter how much you give, the connection won't deepen. That's because the feminine isn't wired to chase out of obligation. She chases when her nervous system senses something she can't explain. That you are not like the others. That in a world of men who crave validation, you've made peace with your own shadow. You're not addicted to her approval. You're not chasing her. You're inviting her into a space she's never felt before. A space of deep presence. A space of gentle power. A space where she doesn't have to perform. And when she feels that, Her defenses melt, not instantly, but slowly, subtly, like snow melting into spring. That's when her curiosity returns. Not the loud kind, but the quiet curiosity. The kind where she finds herself replaying your voice, studying your stillness, feeling your absence not as abandonment, but as mystery. That's when she begins to chase you. Not out of strategy, but out of emotional hunger. The masculine anchor. Jung believed that every person holds both masculine and feminine energy. But in relationships, polarity is what fuels attraction. You, in your grounded masculine, are not meant to chase emotionally. You are meant to hold, to anchor, to invite. You create the psychological container, the energetic field. And in that field, if it's clean, she will begin to dance, not out of pressure, but because the stage feels safe, and your silence feels alive. You don't need lines. You don't need tactics. You don't need to impress her. What you need is depth. Depth that is earned through solitude, through pain, through failure, through silence. She can feel when you've met yourself, when you've walked through fire, when your attention isn't hyper-focused on her, but on truth. That's when she feels magnetized, because she's not responding to your actions. She's responding to your essence. And that essence, if it's whole, will awaken the emotion she cannot resist. Safety, inside your mystery. What happens next? There's a moment when she finally sees it. Not your words, not your gestures, but that 1 second where you simply exist, without reaching. That's when it begins. She leans in, asks deeper questions, laughs a little longer, stays a little later, and you feel it, not in her compliments, but in the frequency of her presence. She's no longer analyzing. She's absorbing. She's no longer observing. She's drawn, not because you chased her, but because she finally felt something she couldn't explain. A man she can trust and still be mystified by. Let's go further, into the moment she pulls away again, even when it seems like everything is going right. What does that mean? And how should you respond? You're about to find out. She pulled away, not because you failed, but because her heart needed space to feel. This is the moment where most men panic. They analyze her silence. They replay every text, every gesture, every glance. And in doing so, they suffocate the very emotion that once drew her in. See, the feminine doesn't just chase consistency. She chases emotional contrast. The moment you interrupt that rhythm, by chasing her when she retreats, by needing her energy when she's resting, by forcing clarity when she's in chaos, you break the magic. Because here's the truth. Her pullback isn't rejection. It's her unconscious testing the container. Can you stay grounded, even when she disappears? Can you still be presence, even when she becomes a storm? Can you trust the connection, even when the emotions feel confusing? This is the edge most men never cross. They feel her distance and immediately rush to fix it, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of being forgotten. But what they don't realize is this is the very moment where polarity is decided, not in the highs, but in the void. Because how you respond to her silence tells her more than anything you said in your presence. When she retreats, stay rooted. Carl Jung taught that every withdrawal is symbolic, a retreat back into the self, not always to escape you, but to find herself. So if you chase her during this inner return, you're not meeting her soul. You're interrupting her initiation. She's not asking you to fix her feelings. She's asking, without asking, can I leave and still feel safe coming back? This is where your grounded masculine becomes more than a concept. You don't respond with manipulation. You don't guilt her into closeness. You don't beg. You don't plead. You don't lecture. You do something far rarer. You trust her journey. Because deep down, the feminine wants one thing above all: to be with a man who doesn't disappear when she does. A man who is still energetically present, even when he's physically absent. A man whose emotions don't collapse, just because hers are flooding. This is where she learns. You are not another wound. You are not another boy in a man's body. You are not another storm pretending to be a lighthouse. You are stillness, even in the thunder. She's watching without watching. Don't be fooled by her silence. In those moments where you feel she's gone, she's observing. Not your words, but your emotional posture. Is he panicking? Is he trying to reclaim power? Is he collapsing under the weight of confusion? Or is he breathing deeper, letting her have space, but not abandoning himself? If she feels that you stayed present without invading, she starts to feel something rare. Safety in your absence. That's when the chase reawakens. Because now, she's not just chasing the way you make her feel when you're near. She's chasing the way she feels when she thinks of you. The softness, the groundedness, the absence of control. And this feeling, this emotional recall, is far more powerful than attraction, because now her nervous system has evidence that you are not like the others, not because you said so, but because you acted differently when it mattered most. Stop explaining. Start embodying. Most men try to repair connection through words. They send essays. They ask questions. They push for answers. But what they don't understand is the feminine doesn't remember your logic. She remembers your vibration. Not what you said, but how your energy felt in her nervous system. So when things feel disconnected, don't try to talk her back into love. Walk her back into safety. Not with pressure, but with embodiment. Embody mystery without chaos. Embody depth without depression. Embody strength without domination. Embody love without fear. That's what she returns to. Not the fantasy of you, but the sensation of you. That sensation is what she'll chase again. The feminine trust test. Every woman, even the most independent, will at some point test the connection. Not with malice, not with games, but with instinct. She has to know. Will you remain grounded when she becomes wind? Will you remain warm when she goes cold? Will you remain still when she storms? Because if the answer is yes, then something profound happens. She softens, her armor drops, and instead of running away, she starts moving toward you, with intention, with vulnerability, with that emotion Jung described as the anima recognition, an unspoken knowing that this man is not just safe, He is magnetic, because he doesn't just touch her body. He awakens her soul memory. And then she begins again. She reaches out, not casually, not performatively, but from a place of real curiosity. She asks how you're doing. She wants to see you. She lingers longer in conversation, not because you chased, but because your silence spoke more than your words ever could. Because she felt it, in the way you didn't fold, in the way you didn't need to be seen, in the way you stayed loyal, not to her, but to your own depth. That's when she realizes you're not addicted to her. You're addicted to truth. And that is the safest place she's ever known. But this isn't the end. There's a darker side to the feminine response, a hidden trigger that makes her chase faster, but then crash emotionally after. What is it? And how do you avoid it? Let's unlock it next. Sometimes she runs toward you, but not because she trusts you. She runs because you've triggered her emotional addiction. Not the healthy pull of connection, but the frantic grasp for relief. From chaos, from loneliness, from wounds you didn't cause, but now activate. This is the danger zone. Because if you confuse her trauma chase for genuine attraction, you'll begin a cycle of connection that feels alive, but never safe. Jung warned that the shadow often hides behind beauty. And in relationships, that shadow wears the face of chemistry. You think, she's into me, but she's really chasing a pattern. And you, without knowing it, are becoming a symbol from her past. She's not drawn to your presence. She's pulled toward the familiarity of pain. And this is where most men fall. They think her obsession is a reward, but it's not desire, it's survival. When the chase isn't love, she texts you constantly. She needs constant reassurance. She clings, but never calms. At first, it flatters your ego. It makes you feel chosen. It validates your masculinity. But pay attention. You'll start to feel drained, not energized. You'll notice your presence isn't calming her. It's stimulating her anxiety. And no matter what you do, she always needs more. More of your time, more of your words, more proof you won't leave. But the tragedy is, she doesn't even believe you when you give it. Because the emotion she's chasing isn't connection. It's control over uncertainty. Jung might say she's not relating to you, but to her projection of you. A projection built from old wounds, old stories, old fears. And no man, no matter how grounded, can heal a woman who's addicted to the chaos of her past. Don't become her nervous system. Here's the hardest truth. If a woman cannot feel safe in her own nervous system, she'll try to regulate herself through yours. But this doesn't feel like love. It feels like emotional debt. You become her therapist, her constant support line, her emotional cushion. And slowly, without knowing it, you start to shrink, to manage her reactions, to live in reaction to her moods. You walk on eggshells, not because she's cruel, but because she's unstable inside. And what began as attraction becomes emotional parenthood. That is not polarity. That is codependency. And if you're not careful, she will chase you all the way into a prison made of expectations, emotional caretaking, and the constant fear of her next spiral. This is why you must be more than present. You must be aware. Because awareness is how you differentiate her real desire from her emotional dependency, the emotion that makes her stay. It's not lust, it's not admiration, it's not even attention. The one emotion that makes a woman stay is peace. But not the peace you give her, the peace you awaken within her. She may chase your mystery. She may obsess over your charisma. She may cling to your power. But if, when she's with you, she feels more chaotic, more confused, more overwhelmed, she will eventually collapse, because the feminine wants to feel safe, losing control. And if she cannot trust herself in your presence, she will resent her own vulnerability. So yes, she may chase you. But if you're the kind of man who ignites her nervous system like a siren, she will regret running after you. She will grieve her softness. She will armor herself again. And she will leave, not with anger, but with the quiet disappointment of a woman who almost believed she could finally rest. The peace test. Here's how you know if she's chasing you from her shadow or from her truth. After spending time with you, does she seem calmer, not more frantic? When you go silent, does she respect the pause, or does she spiral? Does she reflect on your words deeply, or does she just crave more? A woman who is ready for true love will begin to mirror your groundedness. Her energy will regulate. Her curiosity will deepen. Her emotions will start to spiral inward, not outward. She will not just chase your presence. She will anchor into it. And in that stillness, she will realize what she wanted was never the chase. It was the permission to stop running. And when you can give her that feeling, without demanding it, without forcing it, without needing it, that's when she surrenders, not to you, but to the part of herself she had long abandoned, the part that believes love doesn't have to hurt, the part that trusts, finally, that she can feel deeply and still be safe. When you become the emotion. Jung wrote that the animus and anima are bridges between the conscious and the unconscious, between who we are and what we long for. And when a woman chases you, she's not chasing your job, your body, your words. She's chasing the emotional signature you awaken inside her. That signature is your soul's vibration. So ask yourself, what is the feeling of you? Not the image, not the role, not the version you show online, but the energy that lives in your silence. Are you stillness or chaos? Are you a storm or a sanctuary? Because that is what she will remember. Long after the dates, long after the touch, long after the dopamine fades. If being with you made her feel seen without shrinking, safe without performance, soft without apology, she will never forget you. Because she wasn't chasing a man. She was chasing her freedom through you. And that, my friend, is the rarest feeling a woman can ever find. But what if she's no longer chasing? What if you feel her slipping, fading, disconnecting? Is it too late? Not if you know how to reawaken her feminine core, using just your energy, not your words. That's where we're going next. You'll see exactly how to revive polarity, even when the spark feels gone. Let's keep going. She's not gone, not completely. She may be quieter, less reactive, less drawn to your presence. But deep inside, her feminine energy hasn't stopped feeling. It's only protecting itself. Because when a woman stops chasing, it doesn't always mean she's over you. It might mean she's guarding what once bloomed in your presence. Jung warned. The psyche pulls away not to punish, but to preserve. And if you understand that, if you don't panic, if you don't chase back out of fear, if you don't over-explain, overreach, overperform, then something unexpected happens. She leans in again, not because of what you said, but because of what she felt when you said nothing. The power of non-pursuit. The moment you chase a woman who's pulling back emotionally, you confirm her worst fear, that you are driven by need, not clarity, that your calm was conditional, that your attraction wasn't depth, it was dopamine. And dopamine doesn't protect, it pushes. But a man who can stay rooted, even when her warmth disappears, even when her texts slow down, even when her gaze no longer lingers, that man becomes unforgettable. Because she realizes you weren't just a source of validation. You were a mirror, not a mirror that reflects her beauty, but one that shows her who she becomes when she's not acting from fear. That is the rarest thing a woman can feel. The safety of being seen without performing. And if you hold that space, her walls begin to melt. Not from pressure, but from permission. The return isn't loud. She won't come back with fireworks. She won't announce it. It might be subtle. A slower goodbye, a longer stare, a message that seems simple but carries weight. I saw something that reminded me of you. Don't ignore this, but don't over-respond either, because what she's testing is whether the emotion she once felt with you still lives in your energy. She's not just remembering you. She's checking if you remember you. Because if you've lost yourself trying to win her back, she won't feel safe coming close again. Your magnetism was never your words. It was your centeredness, your quiet knowing, your calm frame, your unshakable clarity. Bring that back, not to impress her, but to restore yourself. She will feel it. When she finally feels safe, you'll know it's happening, not because she confesses it, but because she begins to soften in your silence. She no longer over-explains. She pauses between thoughts. She breathes deeper around you. This is the feminine returning to its core. Because what every spiritually awake woman truly wants is not a man who overpowers her emotions, but one who holds space for them without drowning. She wants to be able to break, not so you can fix her, but so she can rebuild in your presence without fear of judgment. She wants to be held, not physically first, but energetically. She wants to say nothing and still feel understood. And only a man who has made peace with his own silence can give her that depth. Carl Jung's final warning. Jung once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. When you are with a woman, when you truly hold space for her rawness, her chaos, her surrender, you are not just connecting with her. You are meeting your own anima, the unconscious feminine within you. And how you respond to her reveals how you treat your own inner softness. If you fear her emotions, you fear your own. If you shame her sensitivity, you've rejected the most sacred part of your spirit. But if you revere her softness, not as weakness, but as wisdom, then she feels it. And in return, she opens wider than you ever imagined, not to please you, but because you've become the man who doesn't demand it. This is when a woman doesn't just chase you. She chooses you again and again and again. Not from fear, not from loss, not from longing, but from the deep knowing that in your presence, she doesn't have to earn love. She just has to feel it. This is the emotion she craved all along. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't lust. It wasn't even love in the way most people define it. It was freedom. The freedom to be fully seen, not as a role, not as a reaction, but as a whole, living, breathing mystery. And when she feels that in your presence, when your gaze doesn't shrink from her storm, when your voice doesn't flinch from her honesty, when your energy doesn't collapse under her intensity, that's when she knows. She's not chasing you anymore. She's coming home to herself through you. And that kind of union, that kind of spiritual intimacy, that kind of energetic magnetism, it cannot be faked. It cannot be manufactured. It can only be remembered. So stop trying to perform. Stop chasing her validation. Stop forcing emotional connection. And instead, become the emotion she's never been allowed to feel safely. Stillness. Let her fall into that. Let her lose herself in that. Because once she does, she'll realize she doesn't need to chase love ever again. She's already found it. In the quiet, unwavering gravity of a man who finally remembered his own power.